Hi everybody, my name is Jim. I'm the owner of Sprague Woodturning and welcome to my channel. So this week we're actually going to make a pet urn. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law recently lost their dog Heidi and I've been asked to make an urn for them. So that's what we're going to do. So this is a piece of butternut. I roughed this out probably 2 years ago. This is way too big for an urn for her. Heidi was a Shih Tzu, so she's not very big. So we'll probably cut it off here-ish. And this is another piece of butternut as well. I'll use this for the lid. And what we'll do is do a paw print, an inlaid paw print in the top of the lid. So I'll probably end up doing that out of soapstone. So that's what this week's video is. So if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Stick around, you never know, we might learn something. And anyway, let's get to the lathe and see what we're dealing with. I do see some knots here, so we may have to fill those in with some soapstone as well. Anyway, let's get to the lathe. Okay, so we have some knots, just like we're seeing earlier. So I'm going to fill these with soapstone because that's what I'm going to do the lid with as well, or the paw print. And I'm just going to use this Typhoon bit. I'll put a link in the description where you can get that as well. One tiny one there too, I guess. So I'm not real concerned about going all the way through this. I don't think there's any need for it. This is pretty close to my outside profile that I want. So I'll go in, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch or so, and just clean that out. There, I'm good with that. That's not the whole knot. That's okay. At least the pith is gone, or the heart of it is gone. So I'll just fill these up with crushed soapstone, and then we'll get it back on the lathe here. Okay, we're over here at my inlay bench. If you haven't seen this before, there's a bunch of videos on my channel that shows it, but this is crushed soapstone, and I combine it with thin CA glue, and that's how I create a lot of inlays. Now, I've left this in the chuck, and again, we're going to be using Starbond thin for the adhesive, and then I also like to use an accelerator as well. So yeah, there's a lot of videos that covers this. We'll do this. So this is thin CA glue. You've got to use the thin stuff when it comes to this type of inlay. There's no way around it. And then I'll just put some more soapstone on it. Make sure you saturate it well. And then hit it with the accelerator. And that will keep it from running, and that way you can work on other parts. Now this should cure for a little while, say at least maybe a half hour before you go at this again. As long as you take really light cuts, hopefully you won't pull any of it out. But when it's fully cured, you won't have any issues at all. So if you've got a deep inlay like this, it's probably best to leave it overnight and then tackle it the next day, let it harden up, even with the accelerator. Because that accelerator is going to penetrate all the way through that to the bottom. And I've left this in the chuck so that it stays true. There. I didn't see the point in going all the way through this. This is not like it's going to be something that's going to be looked in. The ashes are going to go in here, and then that's it. Seal the top. So we'll let that set up and just trim it off a little bit, and then we'll start sanding. Okay, so it's been a couple hours. These inlays should be cured now. So I'll just use my bowl gouge and I'll shear scrape the surface, and then I'll go around, move around to the inside and just kind of thin it out to its final size. Then we can start working on the lid. There, I'm happy with that profile. Anyway, get the inside done, and we'll be ready for the lid. There we go, I'm reasonably happy with that. Just a little thick maybe. But that's that should be more than enough room. I'll try and put a link to a chart as to volume sizes and weights and that kind of thing for how big you need to make your urn. Okay, so before I pinch this between centers, I'm going to give you my plan here. So this hasn't been sanded yet, so I'm going to quickly do a quick sanding on the inside of this. It's pretty decent. I mean, it's not something that people are going to see inside of anyway, but still, I'll give it a quick little sanding. All right, so I'm going to pinch this between centers. This is the lid. Then I'm going to cut a tenon that I can grip with my stronghold chuck. And it's going to be oversized for this. So this is going to be the tenon that goes down inside of the urn body. But this, I'll make this oversized because I don't want to leave chuck marks in that tenon, even though that probably doesn't matter either because it's down inside of the urn. So then I'll grab it with the chuck. I'll do the profile that I want. I'll do the inlay paw print on the top of the urn. And once it's to the size that we want, then I'll put this back in a vacuum chuck and hold it with vacuum pressure and then just clean off the tenon until it's a nice tight fit into the body of the urn. So that's the plan. I thought I'd explain that because I didn't want to leave you hanging. So anyway, I've just transferred to these calipers and it's oversized, which I want. And then I'll transfer it onto here. And then I'll mount it in the chuck and get it done. Okay, so I've put a 2-inch sanding pad on my drill, and what I'm going to do is use 80 grit, a 3.5-inch dimple disc, and this of course will wrap around this, and I'm just going to go in here and I've made the decision that I'm just going to sand this to 80 grit on the inside. Again, this is an urn. It's not like it's going to be used for function. Well, I suppose it is function, but it's something that's not going to be opened. So I think all I'm going to do is use the 80 grit, clean out some of the grain in here, and then I'm going to dump thin CA glue down inside of this, and that in a sense is going to be the finish. The pith is still in the center of this, so that's another reason why I want to do the CA glue, and I might even do that on the bottom side when I cut this off. Okay, so that's good enough for sanding. I can't get right down in the very bottom of this, and that's because this is so tight in here. It's so small. So anyway, let's put the glue in it. Okay, sorry about the lighting. Let's see what this does here. I'm sorry if you can't see, but I have to do this way or else it's not going to work. There, so that should seal in the pith down there, and we shouldn't have any cracking issues in the future. I just need a little bit more up here, and the whole inside of it will be coated. Whew. Yep, she's starting to cure. And I'm just going to let this cure naturally. I'm not going to hit it with the accelerator. I don't want this to be all foamy looking on the inside. Okay, so I've got the lid mounted in my stronghold chuck, and again I've got my calipers set for, this is a little oversized for the final dimension of the rim, of the lid. The problem is it's going to be very close to what the outside diameter of what the jaws are on the chuck, so I'm just going to have to stick with that and adjust it later on. So yeah, we'll cut this down, make a little dome shape on it. I'll probably sand it to 80 grit, and then I'll go over and do the inlay. There, let's do the inlay. Okay, so what we're going to do now is transfer the drawing, and I just went on the internet and kind of freehand this. I think it looks pretty good, but I didn't get it quite centered on the paper. So again, there's our lid. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to maybe off center that a little bit, and that way it should be pretty much dead center on the lid. I think that's good there. So I'm just going to tape this in place so it doesn't move. And you know, I'm sure that there's an easier way to do this, but I'm a wood turner and not a wood carver. There, hopefully that will lay down where I want it to. Make sure we're still in view. Okay, carbon paper. Actually stole this from my wife's supply. I think it needs to be more like that. Okay, I'm just going to hold that in place. And I'm just going to take my pencil, and I don't even know if this is going to work. We'll see. Go around, and hopefully this transfers to the lid here. And again, it doesn't really matter if this is like really rough, because I'm going to take this. I thought maybe I would try and carve out the paw print here at the bench, but I don't think that that's going to work. I want this to be mounted, I think, solidly. So to do that, I think I'll put it back on the lathe, and that way at least I can lean on the lathe and get some support from it and steady my hand up. All right, ready for the big reveal. Look at that. See that? Darken this up a bit. Not too bad if I do say so myself. Okay, so we're back here at the lathe. I'm going to put my spindle lock on, and if you follow my channel, I use this a fair bit. This is a Typhoon bit. I buy them at Lee Valley. I'll leave a link down below. And I've got my tool rest, my tool rest support here, and that'll just give me some support for my hand. I'm going to try and stay within these lines. This can be quite aggressive, but I'm going to try and stay within the lines, and maybe I'll come back and clean it up a little bit with something that's not so aggressive. This has got little burrs all over it. This one's actually getting more out, so hopefully it doesn't smoke too bad. But anyway, I'll have to order one of them. Anyway, got to turn the dust collector on and see what happens here. There, that's not too bad. It's definitely smoking a bit. The butternut is actually quite soft, so it carves quite nicely. It's actually one of the favored carving woods of carvers. So I'm going to change the bit in this, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done a little bit of this. This is just a small little 80 grit drum sander that goes on my my Dremel tool. So I'm just going to finish cleaning up around here. Then I'll just give this a quick sanding just to take off any of the pencil line marks, and then we'll do an inlay. There, I'm very happy with that. Okay, so this is the same process as I did before with the knots. And again, this is crushed soapstone. And I'm using thin CA glue. And I'll put this in kind of in layers. I'm just going to wrap on this. I don't want to hit this butternut too hard because it's easy to dent. So we'll put a layer of soapstone in, and then we'll hit it with the glue. Same deal on this side on every one of these. We don't want this glue to run everywhere. And we'll build this all the way out to the surface. Now this stuff is soft enough that you can tool it with a gouge. I'm not going to do that. I think I'm just going to use I'm just going to power sand it back. It's not real deep, so I don't want to go into the wood below the inlay. And just like all of these natural inlays that I do, it's going to take, you know, probably 3 fillings or so to get rid of all the voids that are left behind. But again, I've said it once, I've said it 100 times, that these inlays are not like using resin. They don't look like plastic, they're natural materials. And of course, resins do have a spot in the wood turning world, that is for sure. And I will actually be going into some resin work as well. But for now, I mean, this has been the bulk of my business now for 20 years, these natural inlays. But you know, I've got burls where the centers are gone out of them, and I mean, that's a great opportunity to use resins. So, you know, you'll see that later on in my channel. There. That's pretty much all done. Just give it another rinse with the thin CA. Set it with the accelerator. Good dosing of it. Now I'll let that sit for at least an hour before I even think about coming back and putting it back on the lathe and sanding it back. If I was actually going to try and tool this back, I would probably let it sit for another 2 or 3 hours before I do that. And that's just because the inlay is probably 1/4 of an inch deep. Anyway, we'll see you back in the lathe when that's dry. Okay, I'm going to start with 60 grit, and then we'll sand this back, and we'll see if it's got any major inlays to be done, and if so, we'll do that again, and then hopefully that will be able to just sand it back and finish it off. So what do you think? Still got some areas to fill in, so that's why we're back here. I find if you shake it like this, the finer material comes to the top. I am going to try and control this a little better. I don't want this spilling over too much. So that's it. You just keep doing that until you get all the holes and voids filled. And then I'll sand the lid here to 320, and then we'll see about vacuum chucking this. I'm thinking that this might be actually too small, so we may have to pinch this between centers to finish off the lid, but we'll see. Okay, so the original plan was to use the vacuum chuck to hold this lid, but this lid is actually too small for my chuck. So what I've done is, this is a piece of spruce, so it's soft, and some rubber mats, router pad mats. So what we're going to do is put this in here like this. That will protect the lid because the lid's all nice and sanded now, so the last thing we want to do is mark that up. And I was lucky enough to still leave the live center marks. So we'll bring up the live center. Snug that down, and what I'll do is I'm cutting the tenon for the body of the urn. So after I cut this with the parting tool, I'll just hold on to this. I'll bring the body of the urn in and see if it fits, and I'll keep doing that until I get a snug fit. And then what we'll do after that is trim this back to where I want that, and we'll sand this edge, and then that's it. We'll just break some corners here, and it'll be done. So I've got these calipers marked for this is a little bit larger than the opening on the body. So this is really only got to go down probably 1/16 of an inch. Doesn't need to go down very much. I think it might still have to go a little bit. Yep. Very light cuts, doesn't take much. And there you go. Now I want to take this down just a little bit. It's just a little bit too much of a shoulder for me. Maybe knock off about a 1/16 of an inch, and that'll be it for that. Okay, so as far as the body of the urn is concerned, I'm just going to put it back on the chuck. Again, I'm going to expand this in here, and then I'm going to bring the live center up. And I'm not going to give it very much. Just want to see how true that's running. And this is just to part off the bottom here. Clean that up. Again, I'm not giving that a whole lot, and that's inside the urn, so you're never going to see it anyway. But I will bring this up just for a little bit of safety. I'll whittle this down, part this down, and then part it right off, and then power sand the bottom. Okay, so if you've been following my channel, you know that I usually do all of my finishing on the lathe. This is a little different, a little hard to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to use the salad bowl finish like I use for my bowls and mills and all that other stuff. And this urn's probably going to get 3 coats. So what I'll do is put a coat on and then furrow steel wool it by hand and put on another coat. And remember that we put all kinds of CA glue down inside of this urn, so that shouldn't take any finish at all. And of course, it's important to seal up all these end grains. If you're going to get splits, that's typically where you're going to get it. So it's important to seal up the end grain. And also what I did on the bottom here was I actually put CA glue on this as well, and then sanded it back before I put the signature on there. And butternut in this part of the world is actually a protected species. And this piece was dead, or actually I think I got this from somebody that cut it down because it was completely dead. So, you know, that's how I end up with a lot of wood. And I'm grateful for it. A lot of people don't want to see this stuff go to waste. So it ends up in my hands. There's no complaints. So there, I can probably put another coat on this later on today and finish the video up tomorrow, hopefully. In the meantime, back to making shavings. Okay, so that's it for the video. Off camera, I put 2 more coats of finish on using furrow steel wool between them, and just made sure that to blow it off with the air gun good and wipe it down before you put the next coat of finish on. I'll bring in here for a last look at the urn. And again, this is butternut, and it's quite soft, so it's easy to turn, but it is prone to tear out. That's the only problem. A lot of the softer woods are prone to tear out. In this part of Canada, we actually can't cut these trees while they're alive. They're protected. They're dying of what's called butternut canker. And so you can't harvest the tree until it's dead, unfortunately. So hopefully it's going to make a comeback and we'll be able to use it because it's a beautiful, beautiful wood. The other thing is, so this is the piece that I cut off the vase initially. If you split it down the center here, you've got a couple of bracelets. That's what you can do with that, or you can glue it back onto another bowl, whatever. The other thing is, so I'll put some stills up at the end, and I've included links in the description with all the products that I'm using. including the link to Starbond. And anyway, I've gone back and I've put it on all of my videos. I'm getting tons of questions about, hey, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? So I'm gonna try and include it in the description below at every video. What else? If you see it in your hearts, please share all my videos on your social media platforms. That would be awesome. Any exposure is great. And yeah, next week I think we'll probably end up doing another inlay, but you never know around here. So if I think of something interesting that comes along, maybe we might hop on that too. But I know that you guys want to see the inlays, so I'll probably stick with that. So until then, take care, stay safe, and don't forget that little bell, you know, when I put a video up, and hopefully we'll see you next week.